Have you ever imagined that one of the most famous leaders in the entire Bible might have a wife whose name almost nobody knows? Well, the story of Moses goes far beyond what we're used to hearing. There is a woman named Zipporah from a completely different culture who played a crucial role in the life of this great liberator. And it doesn't end there. The Bible also reveals the existence of another wife of Moses, a Cushite woman shrouded in mystery, who also left a deep mark on the trajectory of this hero of the faith. Would you like to discover how these two women from such different backgrounds influenced Moses' destiny and impacted biblical history? Get ready to dive into surprising events and little discussed details of Scripture. And if you enjoy exploring these lesser-known aspects of the Word, feel free to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss any of the enigmas we're about to unveil. Shall we begin? After leaving his former home in Egypt, Moses crossed the desert of Midian at one of the most difficult moments of his life. He had escaped in a hurry with no direction after defending a Hebrew and killing an Egyptian. In this setting, so different from the Pharaoh's court, Zipporah's story begins. It was by a well, where women usually brought their flocks to drink water, that Moses witnessed an act of injustice. Some shepherds were harassing and driving away the shepherdesses to keep them from watering their animals. Without hesitation, Moses intervened, drove away the aggressors, and protected these women. Among them was Zipporah, daughter of Jethro, the priest of Midian. When Jethro's daughters returned home earlier than usual and told him what had happened, Jethro became curious about the foreigner who had helped them. Moses was then welcomed into the priest's home, where he found hospitality and eventually grew close to Zipporah. Over time, a strong bond formed, leading to marriage, uniting a Hebrew man raised as an Egyptian prince with a Midianite woman of very different customs. Although they came from distinct cultures, Moses and Zipporah became a valuable partnership. He, having gone from fugitive to shepherd, needed a new outlook on life and someone who could support him on his journey of self-discovery and faith. Zipporah provided not only companionship, but also a family that took him in and helped shape his identity. This period in Midian was a time of growth for Moses. There, he tended flocks, learned to deal with the hardships of the desert, and gradually discovered his true purpose before God. During this crucial stage, Zipporah played an essential role, offering emotional support and witnessing how God was preparing Moses for his mission to free Israel. But who was Zipporah besides her Midianite origin? And how did the culture in which she was raised influence her life with Moses? To better understand, it's worth recalling that the Midianites were a semi-nomadic people living in desert regions near Canaan. Through Midian, a son of Abraham and Keturah, Genesis 25, 1-2. They had a distant connection to the Hebrews, although each group followed its own religious and cultural path over the years. Zipporah, daughter of Jethro, a priest in Midian, likely grew up in a home where values and worship rituals were very present, though not exactly like those of the Hebrew people. This religious aspect of her upbringing provided a strong foundation of faith and reverence for the divine, but with practices and viewpoints different from what Moses was accustomed to. After all, he had spent his childhood in the Egyptian palace, and his Hebrew heritage was still taking root in his heart. Zipporah's marriage to Moses brought together two cultural realities, that of a man who was at once Hebrew by birth and a former Egyptian prince, with that of a woman accustomed to the difficulties and simplicity of desert life. While Moses needed to learn how to live without Egyptian luxury, Zipporah was already familiar with the challenges of surviving in arid lands. Her resilience, forged by the experiences of a semi-nomadic life, was certainly crucial support for Moses, especially when he began to face God's call to liberate the people of Israel. Moreover, being born into a priestly family suggests that Zipporah was brought up to value sacred matters, developing a spiritual awareness that would become important in Moses' journey. Even if her traditions were not exactly those of the Hebrews, this union shows how God, in His sovereignty, can use people from diverse backgrounds to fulfill His purposes. Zipporah's presence also illustrates that unexpected alliances can often bring valuable resources and perspectives. In short, understanding Zipporah's cultural heritage and how she relates to Moses helps us see that this story extends beyond just the Hebrew people or Egypt. There is a rich exchange of customs, ideas, and even religious practices that ultimately reinforces the lesson that God can accomplish His plan through people of different walks of life. Zipporah not only shared Moses' life, but also actively contributed to strengthening and supporting the leader he was becoming. The Bible does not say much about Zipporah's life prior to meeting Moses, but some clues indicate that she was a determined woman who was sensitive to God's voice. Later episodes make it clear how Zipporah was able to act swiftly and decisively, displaying a kind of strength not often seen in that era. Meanwhile, Moses' bond with Jethro, who is Moses' father-in-law and Zipporah's father, makes it clear that the Midianite family had a significant influence on various aspects of the Hebrew leader's life. Jethro not only took Moses in when he needed it most, but also became a wise counselor, offering guidance that helped him face the challenges early in his mission. These insights range from practical advice on organization and leadership to valuable spiritual principles, showing how this family provided stability and direction for Moses. Thus, even though the scriptures do not provide many details about Zipporah's past, it is clear that her presence, and that of her family, was crucial in shaping Moses into the great leader of Israel. A curious point in Moses' narrative appears in Numbers 12:1, where we find mention of a Cushite wife. This opens the possibility that he may have entered another marriage besides the one we know about with Zipporah. The true identity of this woman remains surrounded by doubts since there are no details about who she was or when she joined Moses. Even so, this reference in Scripture indicates that Moses' personal life was more complex than we often realize, involving relationships with other peoples and cultures. Additionally, the incident involving the Cushite wife led to tensions in Moses' family environment, emphasizing that even great leaders faced conflicts within their inner circle. This glimpse into his private life reminds us that Moses was not only a spiritual hero, but also a man who had to navigate different cultural realities and handle pressures from all sides. Often Zipporah is seen as a secondary character in Moses' story, but the truth is that she played an essential role in his growth and preparation for the great mission to come. When Moses settled in Midian after fleeing Egypt, it was Zipporah who accompanied him during the years in which he tended Jethro's flocks. During that time, Moses underwent a profound transformation. He went from being a refugee former prince to becoming a man willing to serve God, enduring the trials of the desert. Zipporah's involvement became even clearer in a critical moment described in Exodus 4:24-26. While they were traveling toward Egypt, God confronted Moses severely, most likely because he had not fulfilled a fundamental commandment: the circumcision of his son. In that situation, it was Zipporah who took the initiative to perform the circumcision with a sharp stone. Then she touched Moses' feet with the foreskin, declaring, "Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me." Though puzzling, this episode shows how Zipporah understood the importance of covenant with God and did not hesitate to act to preserve Moses and their family. She demonstrated not only courage, but also keen spiritual insight, confirming that in addition to being a faithful companion, she was an indispensable support in Moses' upcoming mission. With that decisive act, Moses' life was spared and God's judgment was suspended. Even today, questions linger about why God placed Moses at risk and how Zipporah so quickly grasped what needed to be done. Although she was Midianite, she recognized the significance of circumcision for the Hebrew people, a rite symbolizing the covenant between God and Israel. Her boldness at that moment showed not only obedience, but also a deep spiritual commitment and the resolve to protect her family. After this defining event, Zipporah and Moses continued on toward Egypt, where he would confront Pharaoh in the mission of freeing the Israelites. At some point on this journey, however, Zipporah and Moses' children separated from him and returned to Midian, indicating that they were not present during the plagues or the direct clash with the Egyptian ruler. Although the Bible does not detail exactly why or how this happened, it is clear that Zipporah's influence on Moses' life was pivotal. Her story demonstrates how people from different cultures can play an essential role in God's plans, contributing to the faith and destiny of those he chooses for great purposes. Moses' decision to send his family back to Jethro may have been a way to protect Zipporah and their children from the dangers he would face in Egypt. This choice reflects not only Moses' concern for their well-being, but also Zipporah's strength, as she understood the magnitude of the mission God had entrusted to her husband. It's easy to imagine that, as a wife and mother, she experienced anxious moments and longing during this time apart. Later, after all that occurred in Egypt, including the Exodus and the crossing of the Red Sea, the Bible recounts the reunion of Zipporah and Moses' children with him in the wilderness. It was Jethro, her father, who brought them back, as described in Exodus 18. This moment not only symbolized family reconciliation, but also marked a new phase in Moses' life. Now Zipporah could see firsthand the outcome of so much effort and faith, and witness how God's plans were being fulfilled in her husband's life. This reunion undoubtedly brought relief and joy, reminding us that even in the midst of great challenges, family ties and higher purposes can converge in extraordinary ways. While the Bible does not depict Zipporah in great detail, what it does reveal speaks volumes about her character and the importance of her role in Moses' life. She demonstrated courage, faith, and a readiness to act in decisive moments, including the dramatic scene in which she saved Moses from God's judgment. Not only that, but Zipporah also experienced the trials of marrying a Hebrew who had grown up in the Egyptian palace and accepted the mission of freeing an entire people. Her influence is especially notable considering that, in that historical context, women were often relegated to the background. Nevertheless, the Bible shows that Zipporah exercised spiritual and familial influence in Moses' life, serving as a crucial part of his maturation. She not only understood the divine covenant guiding the Hebrews, but took actions that revealed her firmness and devotion. Despite the uncertainties and challenges she faced, Zipporah remained faithful to Moses and the calling he needed to fulfill, becoming an example of both partner and collaborator in the story of Israel's deliverance. Her discreet but decisive presence reminds us that God often uses people from different backgrounds to carry out his purposes, even if they are not in the spotlight. Moses' reunion with Zipporah and their children became even more significant thanks to Jethro. Not only did he bring the family together, but he also provided advice that completely changed Moses' leadership style. Observing how Moses was taking on all the responsibilities of judging and guiding the people by himself, Jethro suggested that he delegate some of these tasks to other leaders. That counsel proved crucial in making Moses' leadership more organized and preventing him from burning out. It's important to remember that although she is sometimes sidelined in these narratives, Zipporah played a fundamental part in Moses' story. Her courage, wisdom, and unwavering support at key moments helped shape not only the life of Israel's deliverer, but also the course of the entire Hebrew nation. And you, did you already know the story? Leave your opinion in the comments if you enjoyed learning more about these figures who were so significant in Moses' life. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell. That way, you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. Until then, may God bless you.